I'll never forget it, hearing these words, and that if I treated her or did her the way that I have done previous girls in my previous relationships, that my life would be cut short.
And I just asked the Lord, I said, remove everybody from my life that should not be there. Even if it's Jimmy, remove him. The week before we got married, I lost the baby.
3 months after we got married, we couldn't stand each other. And she started showing her real self. And I started showing my real self. And our real selves didn't like each other.
And there are sexual demons attached to that. There are sicknesses attached to that. Big black imp. He was short, and he had such a grip and a hold on me that he was not willing to let me go. But they prayed and prayed and prayed.
What would you do if this was the world's last night? If tomorrow God cracked the sky and everything you see folded up like a storybook? Would you be caught doing what God purposed you to do? Welcome to the World's Last Night podcast. My name is James Thayer, and I'm an evangelist out of Nashville, Tennessee, who is passionate about seeing people have an authentic encounter with their Creator. Jesus still lives, still saves, still heals, still delivers, and I can prove it. Hey friends, Freedom Collective is gearing up for a 3-month-long crusade across the state of Tennessee next year. In getting there, we are having to undergo a lot of transformation, a lot of changes. We are launching a new website. We are getting our team better organized so that we can hit up more and more events. Along with this growth comes expenses, specifically software to help us account, to help us organize teams and launch them and send them out to do these events to reach the lost. Would you consider becoming a monthly partner of Freedom Collective? We actually, on our website, have reoccurring donations available at fcministries.co. Even $5 a month, $10 a month goes a long way to help us keep things going and to help us keep advancing God's kingdom. Hey guys, welcome back. Today in the studio, I have two good friends of mine. I have Jimmy and Tishara Pitts. Do you guys want to say hey?
Hello.
Hey.
This is a couple in my church that is highly honored, highly respected. My wife was even saying, leading up to this talk, that the direction we should steer it in is what is it like to be like a second mother or a second father to people in a church? Because so many people in our church view you that way. And I don't know if you know that, Tishara is like about to cry. But it's true. And I view you guys that way. Maybe more like uncle and aunt. I don't know. I really appreciate you both. This couple is so outstanding. They just serve and serve. And it's so interesting because they are leaders, but they also are very teachable, which is very hard to find. Kind of like I feel like our head pastor is that same way. It's one of the things I love about him is his humility. You guys so into my ministry. And so I really appreciate that. So even this podcast exists partially because of this couple, or this testimonies and stories you hear about people getting saved through Freedom Collective partially exists because of Jimmy and Tishara. So I just really appreciate them. They are pillars of my church, and I'm really honored to have them on the podcast today.
Thank you.
And so guys, I wanted to start off by figuring out how you met, because I've never even heard that story before. I would love to know, like, how did you guys become a married couple?
Do you really want to know that?
We'll give you the down and dirty.
Go for it.
So I met Tishara at the University of South Alabama. Tishara, in my opinion at the time, was probably one of the finest females on campus. She was very attractive, tall, slender. I knew that she was out of my league.
Yeah.
I knew that I did not have a chance of being able to date Tishara. And then one day, she moved into my dorm, and she moved into a friend of mine that I would go visit. We stayed in a co-ed dorm, and so there was a girl named Lisa that stayed above me. And I would talk to Lisa all the time about, man, there's this beautiful black girl on campus who has a mole on her face. She's got long hair, and I would tell Lisa I would just love to get with Tishara. I knew her name, but she didn't know me. And Lisa called me one day, and she says, "James, you are not gonna. She's like, you're not gonna figure out what just happened." I said, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "That pretty black girl you were talking about with a mole on her face?" I said, "Yeah. She's my roommate now."
Oh, wow.
So that started my journey of trying to pursue Tishara. When I went up to Lisa's room, I noticed that Tishara had her bed nicely made up. There was a white Bible on the center of the bed, and I said, "Oh, she's a church girl." But that was the start of my pursuit for Tishara.
Wow. And so, Tishara, have you known about him before your roommate told you, or how did that work? How did you actually meet?
Well, we met, leading up to that, I was actually in a different dorm.
Okay.
Because I was sheltered growing up. My mom and dad, like, we couldn't go anywhere. Like, we didn't spend the night with anybody, parties. Like, we didn't do any of that. I went off to college, and I ended up in this dorm, and I called my mom and my dad like at 1 o'clock in the morning. I was like, Dad, you're not going to believe what they're doing. I'm at this party, and they're doing this, and they're doing that. And I think after a couple of phone calls, my dad was like, I think we need to move her back into the original dorm that she was in. And I did not want to move. But when I did move, that's when I met Jimmy.
Okay.
So
did you ask her out? How'd that go? Did you guys go on a date?
I tried for a while to get Tishara to go out with me.
Did you keep shooting him down?
I did, because he
Was he kind of wild?
He was a thug. He hung with thuggish people that were in partial kind of like gangs. And I'm like, no, not going to do it.
Wow. So you grew up like the goody girl, and then were you a gangster?
I was a bad boy.
Okay.
Very, very bad.
Yeah, I was a bad boy. I wouldn't say that I was necessarily a gangster, but they say birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
So my crowd and the people that I hung around was definitely not the crowd that was attracted to Tishara. Tishara wasn't attracted to that crowd.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of partying, drinking, smoking things that, are illegal, and so on and so forth. And so I was just out there. Mm-hmm. And so I had tried multiple times to ask Tishara out on a date, and she shot me down. And
finally one day
she let me take her to a dollar movie.
Okay.
In Mobile, Alabama.
And I would not let him pay for anything, because I didn't want him to pay for it. Even though it was $1, I can take care of myself. I don't want you paying for anything.
So yeah, I guess it just persistence. I was just persistent.
Yeah.
I can remember leaving a party, and I was drunk, and after the party, people would go to Crystal's. Crystal stays open 24 hours, and so I walked into Crystal's, and Tishara, her sister, and her two friends were in Crystal's ordering, and we walk in, and I see Tishara, and I see her sister Mikkel, and I'm just talking it up, and I said, "Hey, what are y'all gonna do tomorrow?" And Tishara's sister, she turns her head at me, and she rolls her neck, and she says, "We're going to church." and so I rolled my head at her. I said, "I want to go to church." And she said, "Well, if you think you can get up in the morning, you can go with us." And so I was like, "Man, this is the time for me to go to church, and maybe I can sit next to Tishara." And
there you go. Flirt to convert.
But my sister Plop, she got right in between the both of us. So he did go to church with us, and I think after that we kind of started seeing each other a little bit after that. I think.
Jimmy, was that your first time in church?
No, that was not. I'm a preacher's kid.
Oh, dang.
So my dad, mom and dad are pastors. They pastor a church. And so I grew up in the church. I can tell you that when I left high school and went to college, I just felt like I was missing something. There was something that I was yearning for or looking for. And I think I was just trying to seek that out in the college life. I did not live a sheltered life like Tishara. I felt like my parents were strict, but they weren't as strict as Tishara's parents. But at the same time, I didn't get exposure to a lot of things that as I was growing up, kids that I hung out with, they got exposure to. And so I just felt like just growing up, I was deprived of some things, and I was trying to seek after those things, while I was in college.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you went to church. I'm sure this, just to fast forward, you guys just kept dating and eventually marriage came, or was there anything more interesting than that going on?
No, I will tell you, our relationship started getting serious in college. And Tishara had went home for a weekend, and I remember being on the second floor of my dorm, and I walked into this room that was empty, and I'll never forget it, hearing these words. But I heard these words in my spirit that said that Tishara was an apple in God's eyes, and that if I treated her or did her the way that I have done previous girls in my previous relationships, that my life would be cut short. It's literally scared me when I heard those words. And I called Tishara and I told her, I said, I think we need a break from each other.
And I didn't understand that because as he was going through that, I was actually kind of liking him, but also coming out of another relationship that I was actually in. And I just remember my dad coming to me at that moment, and he said, you need to pray, and you need to ask God who you're supposed to be with. I left out of the bathroom. I went into my bedroom, and I might have been, 19, 20 years old. I got on my knees, and I just asked the Lord, I said, remove everybody from my life that should not be there, and bring whoever I'm supposed to be with into my life. And I said, even if it's Jimmy, remove him. And people started moving out of my life, and he was the one that God actually had, which I didn't know at that time. But then whenever he said he wanted to take a break from me, it was like, but Lord, I thought for sure you were doing something here. Like, I didn't know anything about, a whole lot about the voice of God, but I was really hearing him. I would pray and things were like, as I'm thinking, I'm like, they would just happen. And I'm like, I was upset with him because he wanted to take a break. I'm like, what's going on? Like, why didn't he take a break? Because he didn't let me know.
You didn't tell her?
No, I didn't tell her.
No.
I didn't tell her. I was scared.
Yeah.
And I knew that our relationship was getting serious. But prior to Tishara, the life that I lived and the experiences that I had, I wasn't sure if I was just ready to settle down and be committed to her. And that's what scared me, is that I don't know if I can stay committed to Tishara. And so in that instance, I felt like it would be best for me to just separate and say, hey, why don't you go do your thing and let me go do my thing, and if it's meant to be, it'll happen. And so I didn't share with her. I don't know why I didn't share with you why I felt like we needed a break, but just hearing those words within my spirit, I did not want to do any damage to her that would create or provoke my life being cut short, because I hurt her.
Wow. So what turned your life around, Jimmy?
Well, Tishara, as our relationship started getting serious, Tishara, she told me, she said, listen, she says, I really like you and I want to be with you, but you've got to stop hanging around the guys that you're hanging around. And for me, that was kind of an easy decision, because I really wanted to be with her more than I wanted to be with the other guys. And so as I stopped associating myself with them and spending more time with her, then I believe that's when things in my life started changing or turning around. and I started getting closer, closer to God.
Was that just from her example, or was she just kind of browbeating you into going to church and reading your Bible and stuff?
Well, she didn't start doing that until after we got married.
Okay.
So yeah, she didn't start doing that until after we got married. I just think it was more of her presence and just more of her, of who she was and how she carried herself, that just drew me in. There was just an aura about her that just drew me in, and I don't know, it just, on the inside. I remember my father pulling me to the side, and he said he had met Tishara, and he pulled me to the side, and he said, boy, he said, you better not mess this one up. He said, that's a good girl. And my mom said, yeah, all them other chicken heads you brought home. She said, I couldn't stand any of it. They never said anything about any of the girls that I brought home, but her,
Yeah.
they're like, you only get one good one, maybe two, but if you blow this one, he says, you'll be sorry. And that just sat with me for a long time, hearing those words. And so I knew that in order to be with Tishara, I knew I was going to have to change.
Okay.
I was going to have to start making some changes. I couldn't continue doing what I was doing if I wanted to be with her. And so, in a sense, I believe that God used her to help change my trajectory, change my belief, my thought patterns, and what I did and what I said, to draw more closer to the Father instead of being out there in the world and doing worldly things.
And Tishara, like, I now know you as very prophetic. I even would call you a seer. And I want to know, at this point in your life, were you operating in any of that? You said you could hear from the Lord very well. Mm-hmm. But really what I'm getting at is, at this point in your life, had the Lord been speaking to you about Jimmy? Like, hey, you're going to marry him, or giving you wisdom about him? Anything along those lines?
I think it was more so I just know at the moment when he said that he wanted to take a break, I was just praying, asking God to, like, work this out. Like, what do you, I don't know. I can't remember the exact prayer that I prayed, but I just remember in that moment that I was praying, he called right then and there as I was praying, because I was so hurt that he wanted to take a break, and started talking again. We got together, being very promiscuous. I got pregnant. Didn't really want to be pregnant, but I felt like being pregnant would actually bring us together. And so during that time of me being pregnant, not wanting to be pregnant, I came home, and I don't know, I think God just started changing my heart. Like, I really wanted the baby, and we had scheduled to get married September of 95, but we moved the wedding up to February of 95. And so the week before we got married, I lost the baby on the Friday before. And that Friday I remember getting up and constantly going to the bathroom, and I felt like I just have to go poop.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why. And I'm like, Lord, I don't know what this is, but just please, whatever this is, just don't let it be the baby. Like, I really, really want this baby. Please, just don't let it be the baby. Let it be anything else, Lord. Just don't let it be the baby. And he just told me, something is going to happen, but you're going to be okay. I just know I wasn't feeling good that morning. My mother ended up coming home on her lunch break, which was a blessing. And I told her what I was feeling, and she goes, like, she didn't even tell me that I was even going through, like, I was actually going through labor at that moment. She called my dad ASAP. We need to get her to Mobile, which is like an hour and a half. My dad came home, and he raced almost 30 to 45-minute drive to, which it would normally take like an hour and a half to get there. We got there. I ended up losing the baby.
How far along were you?
5 months.
Oh, it's pretty far along to then miscarry.
Well, it actually wasn't a miscarriage. It was actually, my body was going through preterm labor.
Okay.
And it was all because I was promiscuous with other guys on campus.
Okay. So while you guys were dating,
Yes.
you were with other men.
Yeah, so it was
Okay.
actually
Before we were dating.
before I was actually dating him.
Okay.
It was just I was living a life that, and it wasn't a lot of guys, but it was enough to say, I don't really want to do this. And I knew, for some reason, I think God was separating me. Was like, this is not what I want.
Yeah.
But that started my journey of God doing a work in me, because me having to be put on bed rest wasn't an issue because of what the doctors were constantly having to do to my cervix. And I didn't know that until about maybe 5 or 6 years here recently later. Why? And it hurt so bad. I'm like, if I had have kept my virginity, because I had always said I was going to keep myself. And I just remember me losing my virginity to the first guy that I was with on that campus. And I can't tell you what it was. I just knew it was something of God, that I felt like something left my body. And I instantly was in tears, because I knew like something, the only way I could describe it was something of him left me. I don't know what it is, but I was just in tears after that. And it was just like my life was just.
And so did you guys keep the wedding date?
Well, yeah, we did. So she lost the baby on February the 10th,
Yeah.
and we kept the date of February the 18th. And I know a lot of people were saying, okay, she's lost a baby. Are you still gonna marry her?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm still gonna marry her.
You weren't just doing it because there was a baby involved.
Yeah. And so I think I had already made up in my mind that I'm gonna remain. Tishara is who I'm gonna be with. This is who I'm gonna be committed to. And so on our wedding day, I got sick as a dog. I mean, I got so sick. And I remember my dad knocking on the door. He's like, "Are you gonna be okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna be fine." He says, "Do you still want to go through with this?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's too late now. Mr. Billy will take me out in the woods and shoot me if I don't go through this. All that money they done spent on this wedding." I said, "Yeah, I'm sure I want to go through it." But I knew that Tishara was a good person. The way that she honored her father, respected her parents. That's one of the things that my dad that's one of the advices, that he gives. He says, when you're dating someone, he says, you want to see how the relationship is with, if you're a woman, see how that relationship is with their father. And if you're a man, see how the relationship is with the mother. Because at the end of the day, when y'all get married, they're going to treat you like they treat their mother or their father when things happen. And so I knew Tishara was a good person. And so I didn't see any reason why I wouldn't marry her. But I will tell you that I was nervous. We got married at 21.
Yeah.
And I'd say that was probably too young, but we did it. 3 months after we got married, we couldn't stand each other.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we went to grow in separate ways.
Yeah.
Did you guys, I think the answer is probably no, but did you guys do premarital counseling before you got married?
No.
Well, we did. The premarital counseling was 5 minutes with the preacher before we got married.
And it was just basic questions.
Yeah.
Why do you want to get married? Just really, really basic questions. That was pretty much it. It wasn't like an in-depth like what we do now with couples.
Yeah.
It was nothing like that.
Yeah. And so then you're at each other's throats at 3 months.
Yeah, at 3 months it was I was like, I think I made a mistake.
And so what was the big stressor?
The stressor was I think she was she camouflaged herself and she started showing her real self. And I started showing my real self, and our real selves didn't like each other. And I think she was more so telling me, she's like being my mother. She's like, you need to do this and you need to do that, and why come you're not doing this? And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I'm a grown man. I said, I don't live at 12 10th Street, Shalimar, Florida anymore. I don't need you to be my mother. And so she kept trying to change me. And because she kept trying to change me, it was frustrating. It was frustrating me and making me angry and upset. And then we had this repetitive circle going on in the house where we were just at each other's necks or throats, arguing with each other all the time. And it didn't help either that my parents were in town. Her parents were only 2 hours away. And it wasn't until we had 2 hurricanes come through in 1995, and my mom said, and I lost my job. And my mom said, y'all need to move to Atlanta. Neither one of you have degrees. Fort Walton Beach, Florida is a tourist town. So jobs are, if you're not Civil Service or Air Force, the jobs aren't good. And so you need to move to Atlanta, and y'all need to get away from family.
Yeah.
So time out. You didn't graduate from college either.
I did not know.
Okay.
No, I did not. So my dad, in 1993, I was visiting Tishara. I was at South Alabama. Tishara was at home. I went to go visit her during a break, during the weekend. On my way back to Mobile, I got into a car accident. And to this day, I think that was a God thing. So I was listening to this group called Jodeci. I was on in Uriah, and I'm driving my white Isuzu pickup truck, and I'm listening to this music, and it's dark. And if you've ever been on the highways in rural Alabama, there are no lights.
Yeah.
Boondocks.
And so I'm driving my Isuzu truck, and I'm looking, and I see this big white cow on the side of the road. And I'm looking, and I'm like, why is there a cow on the side of the road? And so the cow is about to cross the street. And I'm like, what is the cow doing crossing the street? And the cow and I don't know why I didn't slow down all the way. I slowed down, but I didn't slow down all the way. So I kept going, thinking that I could just swerve around and miss the cow. But instead of swerving to the left, I swerved to the right. The cow's head kind of like dropped immediately, kind of like its head bucked at my truck. And I swerved off the road. I ripped a fence row and ran into a telephone pole. I hit the telephone pole so hard it split it all the way up to the top.
Wow.
And there I sat on Highway 31 in Uriah, Alabama. There I sat for like 15 minutes waiting for a car to pass. And the whole time I felt like I was in a cage. I wasn't scarred. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't bruised. And police finally came out and started questioning me. They thought I was drinking or smoking, and I was getting a little belligerent because they were asking me these questions, and I'm like, no, I haven't been smoking, I haven't been drinking.
There was a cow on the road.
There's a cow on the road, and he's like, if there's a cow on the road and you hit the cow, why come there's no blood on your truck? Why come there's no hair on no cow hair on your truck? And then the owner of the field comes out, the owner of the property comes out, and he's like, we don't have no. He's like, the cows are on the other side of the property. There's no cows out here. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I hit a cow. I know what I saw. I hit a cow. And to this day, I think that was the Spirit of God catching my attention. My parents drove to Uriah, Alabama to pick me up. And my dad told me, he said, he called me to the kitchen table, and he said, you're not going back to South Alabama anymore. He says you're going to school to major in Tishara, and you're not going to school to study. And he's like, I don't pay for C's.
Yeah.
He says, I don't pay for average. And so he said, so in October of 93, he told me, he says, you have until September, you have 1 year of 94 to get a job, get your own place, and get out of our house. Because two men can't live in the same home.
And you were like 20 at this point? 20,
Yeah.
19, 20?
Yeah, 19, 20 at this point.
Okay.
And so I was like, golly, man, I'm crying and boohooing. I'm like, you're my father. I can't believe you're doing this to your son. And so my mom is giving him a hard time. My godfather is giving him a hard time. And my dad was like, he needs to grow up. He's like, Jimmy has got to grow up. So I ended up getting a job at the post office that paid pretty well, getting my own place. By March, April of '94, I was living on my own, and had my own place.
Yeah.
But when you guys got married, and then now you're moving to Atlanta, right? Would either of you say that you were really following Jesus at that point in your life?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would say, obviously not at the level that we are today.
Yeah.
But I would say yes. We were both plugged in to church. We were going to church. When we got to Atlanta, it was a priority for us to get into somebody's church.
Yeah.
And so when we got to Atlanta, we connected with a church and established some really good friendships.
Yeah.
I want to say that the friends the friendships that we established, one in particular, the Peters, that watching him and how he served in ministry was an eye-opener for me. How you can humble yourself up under somebody else and be able to deny yourself for the sake of someone else.
Because we had never seen that.
Before. And so watching him, and I say every church needs a Peter.
Because his
last name is Peters. I say every church needs a Peter, and I saw how he did that, and it touched my heart. And
Yeah.
I can remember my mom and dad came and visited the church that we were going to at the time. The pastor of the church is more like a Kojic, if you're familiar with that. With Kojic, and so in Kojic everything is very it's more so you're serving the pastor. It's more so you do as the pastor says. It's more of a controlling.
Lots of titles.
It's more of a controlling spirit. And my mom and dad, they visited the church, and my mom looked at me and she's like, "Why in the world are y'all going to this church?" And really, the reason we connected with this church was because of the friendships that we had established. It wasn't because of the pastor. It was just because of the friendships that we established. But I say that going to that church did something for me because it allowed me to humble myself. It allowed me to drop to deal with that spirit of pride that I've been dealing with. It allowed me to deal with that. And in that season in my life, that church did me good because it allowed me to understand what humility was and what it's like to be humble and what it's like to serve someone else, and deny yourself for the sake of someone else or benefiting someone else. And so I would say, when we got married, I mean, we were saved, but we weren't like
sanctified.
Yeah.
No, I pushed him a lot in our marriage, like he never hit me, but just to push his buttons, just wanting him to do something. I think we both had that. I had anger that I didn't really know that I had, but was just so upset because things aren't going the way that you really want them. And I just remember we're in church, and I can't remember I don't even know what the name of the sermon was that the pastor even did, but it was something on change. And within that 3-month period of us getting married, I came home, I got on my knees. The Lord told me he didn't want me to bring Jimmy before him again, that he wanted to bring me. He wanted me to come before him.
Oh, like instead of praying, Lord, will you change him?
He wanted
change me.
Yes, he wanted to bring a change in me.
Yeah.
And I would say that was probably a trajectory that it changed my entire life, because the wisdom that he poured into me at that moment, I use it in the marketplace. I use it on my jobs. I use it, and I think that's what has transformed how I see him and how I view him and how I respect him, in a manner of just like I don't know. I honor him, but it's all in the way of how God was ministering to me. We had a lot of rough moments. God just he kept changing, bringing forth change. He asked me to sit with him, to come before him, and I didn't even know at that time what the sitting, what all that was going to be doing. And I just remember I would constantly just come before him and just be with him. But he would bring forth a lot of change within me, and the changes that I wanted to see in Jimmy at that time, I didn't have to say anything because he automatically started changing. And I just knew that our love for each other, that we had to love, I had to love him more first. Jesus, God, more than I loved him. And that's just the way it was. And every time the enemy came in, it's like he drew the love between the two of us stronger. I don't even know how God was doing it. I just know the love that we have for one another, it kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger every time the enemy would come in. It was just he was doing something that we could not see.
Yeah, we were learning to love in spite of instead of just because.
Yeah.
So when you love just because, there's always a contingency tied to it. But when you love in spite of, you love regardless of what that person does for you, what that person says to you, how she treats you. You just love in spite of. And so, I was the young lady that we were taking home yesterday. I was sharing with her there's no such thing as falling in love. You fall into something, you can always fall out of it. But love is something that you have to grow in. When Tishara and I met, I was emotionally drawn to her. There was an emotional connection there. What I've come to learn and understand is that if you're wanting to get married, there's one thing that you have to I believe every marriage can be successful. Mm-hmm. Every marriage has an opportunity to thrive. The number one question is are you willing to change? Marriage will cause you to make sacrifices that you never intended or wanted to make. And so if you're willing to make changes, if you're willing to make a change, if you go into this relationship knowing and understanding, okay, I can't be the same person that I am today. I'm going to have to evolve. I'm going to have to change to be the best version of myself that I can be, not for me, but for my spouse. And sometimes that's going to require me to do some things that I may not want to do, but I'm doing it in spite of, because it's love that's that's love that's going to be in action. And so, that's something that very rarely do we ever get into like a argument. Now we have disagreements, but our kids have never seen us. They've never seen us argue.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but they've just never seen us argue because, now 10 years into our marriage, it wasn't like that. Mm-mm. But, we have learned over the 30 years that we've been married, we've learned that, we're always changing. Yeah. Something happened when Tishara decided to go back to school and get her bachelor's degree. I'll never forget. So I did go back to school and I got my degree, and then I got my master's degree. And so then Tishara was like, well, you got your bachelor's degree. I want to get my bachelor's degree. And so she went back to school, and she was doing some math homework. And the math homework that she was doing, in my opinion, was very, very, it was simple.
Yeah.
And it was simple. And so Tishara was asking me to help her with a word problem. And so we were going over the word problem, and she wasn't getting the word problem. And I made a comment, and the comment, I can't remember exactly what I made.
I bet Tishara remembers.
You should know.
What did I say?
It was something along the lines of, you should know how to do that. Or
okay.
Something along those lines.
So that's what I said. I said, you should know how to do this.
The subtext is you're stupid.
And so she shut down on me. She went quiet. And she didn't say anything for a minute, but then she came back to me and she said, I just want you to understand how I felt when you said what you said. And she says, when you said that, it reminded me of when my father disciplined me when we were going over math problems and I couldn't get it. And my father would discipline me for that. And when she shared that with me, I mean, we've been married 25 years now, and she's sharing this with me, and I didn't know that. It did something within me to say, I can't continue to make assumptions that Tishara should know things that I know, because she grew up in a completely different environment than I did. We both had different exposures. You know, if you put her in the city, she might have a hard time surviving. If you put me in the country, she's going to survive. I'm going to struggle because she's country. She grew up in the country. She grew up with pigs and chickens and hogs and all that. I didn't. And so I can't always assume that she knows what I know, and vice versa. She can't assume that I know what she knows. And so, you know, we have to deal with those assumptions in relationships, and we have to deal with those prejudices. I can't say that word. Prejudices in relationships. You have to deal with them. And if we can keep in the back of our mind that, hey, the object here is to love one another in the way that Christ loved us. Yeah. And so when I was going through what I went through and the trials and tribulations that I've gone through, how Christ loved me through all of that stuff, I need to take that into consideration when I interact with my wife, especially when maybe things aren't peachy between us. They're not going really well between us. I need to say, hey, I gotta love my wife in spite of. I can't make these assumptions, or I can't make these prejudices against her, because she's not me.
Do either of you feel like you took on some of the negative characteristics of your parents in marriage?
100%.
Yes.
Tishara, what, anger? You mentioned anger earlier.
Anger. I would probably say maybe anger, silence.
Like instead of talking things out, you just shut down? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. That was the only way I knew how to cope.
It's more of a, usually men do that more than women, I feel like. Just like, I don't want to talk about it. Was it your mom that did that?
If she would get upset with me, she would go a while without not speaking to me.
Okay. That's how she treated you.
I guess I carried that. I mean, I don't want to say I guess. I did carry that with me for a for a long time. We've since rectified all of that because, you know, a couple of years later on in our marriage, I remember going back to her and just kind of talking it through. But yeah, I mean, it was, I think it kind of bothered me because it was just something that stuck with me. And
man,
I've had to work through that, and now we communicate a whole lot better than what we actually did previously. But yeah, so I carried the silence and the anger.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like the silence is sort of a way to just punish someone.
Yes.
My wife, if I go a quarter of the day without talking to her, she automatically thinks I'm angry at her. Like, even when I'm not. It's just, I think silence, you know. Sometimes some people would rather get any kind of attention, even if it's negative attention from someone they love, than to be ignored, you know, or to have apathy. And so I feel like that is this podcast is turning into a marriage podcast, which is really cool because we haven't really done one. But there are certain characteristics because, you know, Allie and I, we do premarital counseling. You guys do premarital counseling for people. And so we've seen maybe 6 or so marriages on the brink of divorce not, you know, come back together. And that's just how the Lord has given us opportunities to speak into people's lives. But a lot of it does come down to communication and setting expectations. Mm-hmm. And that's Allie's big thing, is set expectations and also very clearly mark them. And I think in premarital, someone had told us this example of taking garbage out instead of, it's usually like taught to the woman, instead of saying, hey, the garbage is looking really full. You got to be like explicit and be like, will you take the garbage out, please, right now? And so that's, it's good communication. And instead of the husband being like, yeah, it is kind of full, and then going off and doing his own thing. Because she's trying to say something that she's not really saying in that. And so Allie's really big on that and setting expectations. So do you guys do the Symbis for people? Do you use that or do you use something else?
We have not. We've heard Joel mention Symbis before. Okay. And we've actually, our daughter who's getting married next year, we've asked her and her fiance, they found someone in Birmingham that does the Symbis, and they're going through it.
It's saving your marriage before it begins.
Before it starts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can acronym. And so there's a section of it. So you take tests. So the engaged couple each take this sort of questionnaire separately. They're not allowed to collude about their answers. And one section of it that they do is really interesting because it has division of labor questions. And so it asks, okay, in your family growing up, who took the garbage out? Who budgeted? Who brought home money? Who mowed the grass? Who blah, blah, blah. And then it says, in your family, who do you expect to take the garbage out, do the laundry, discipline the children, all these things? And now keep in mind, they're not allowed to take this together. So when you get them in the same room, they can finally compare these answers. And sometimes they're like, what? You expect me? You're like, you expect both of us to do, because that's another option. It's like both of you handle auto mechanic issues or whatever. And until you go through something like that, you haven't set any expectations. Yeah. We have found that so many couples just don't talk enough. They don't ask enough questions about what do you expect from marriage.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like sex, it's like, how often are you expecting we do this?
Yeah.
And so that's interesting to see the couples come and they're like, they might be different. They might be the same, surprising. And even like, how often do you want to go to church? Like how important are spiritual things to you? Is it important that you read the Bible together or pray together every day? Is it important that you take communion together or that you belong to the same church? All these things. So I do find that, I know this is a slight tangent. I just got kind of excited because I felt like we could turn this into a marriage thing. But people bring baggage from their parents into their marriage.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you could circumvent it if you just had a little bit of counseling before you got married.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Now, you said, Jimmy, that you feel like you brought some stuff into your marriage. That you learned. What kind of things do you feel like you dealt with?
Yeah, I mean, I had anger issues also. I can remember my dad, when he couldn't find his keys, he'd punch holes in the wall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so...
Well, he needs deliverance.
I mean, he doesn't do that anymore, but I remember we bought this, we bought it. My dad bought this rainbow vacuum cleaner. I think he paid $1,200 for the rainbow vacuum cleaner.
Wow.
And he's vacuuming the carpet in the living room, and every time he would pull the head of the suction cup, the canister would fall over, and he'd go back and he'd pick it up, and then he'd pull it and the canister would fall over again, and he'd go back and he'd pick it up. And then all of a sudden, this rage he got so tired of picking the canister up, he took the vacuum cleaner, opened the patio door, and threw that thing out on the patio, and that thing just went. And my mother's like, we're laughing at him, and my mother's like, go to your room because he's gonna kill y'all if he sees you.
Oh, no.
If he sees you laughing. I definitely, in raising kids, the way that my parents raised me, I tried to raise my kids in that same way. My dad used intimidation.
Yeah.
And so it was you do what I say or else. And so that's how I carried that over into the relationship with my kids. And although it was somewhat effective with my girls, and in ways it was, in ways it's not, because I think today they still have a problem talking to me because of my interactions with them. I don't think they feel comfortable talking to me because of interactions that I had with them, but it's definitely been damaging with the relationship with my son. Because out of the 3 kids, he was the worst. That's from a behavioral perspective. And he's the one that I was the hardest on. And so I'll never forget, I saw something on his phone that I didn't like. I got angry. I took his phone. I threw it down to the ground. I started stomping on it. And then I pushed him up against the wall and basically told him I was going to beat his tail.
Yeah.
That if I saw, that stuff on his phone again. And then after it was all over with, the Lord spoke to me and he said, "What good was that?" He says, "You're going to have to buy another phone. You destroyed a perfectly good phone. You're going to have to buy another phone. And what you just did, if he can't do it here, he'll find somewhere else,
Some other way to do it.
or some other way to do it." So how you handle that situation was one, it was not necessary, and it was ineffective.
Yeah.
And my son to this day remembers that experience, and he'll throw that up in my face whenever we have discussions or I want to talk to him about particular things. He always references back to that experience. It's like, "This is why I don't tell you anything." He says, "Because you get angry, you get mad, when I tell you something." And so I have worked over the last, 5 years or so.
Because you and I both went to
We
counseling.
went to counseling. So we went to counseling.
Marriage together or separate counseling or both?
Tishara and I went to parental counseling.
Parent counseling. Thinking it was for him.
Yeah.
But we got there and it was like, it was ministering like to us. Like we needed to change.
Okay.
Yeah, so because I had reached a point to where I didn't know what else to do with my son,
Yeah.
and I was desperate, and so we started looking, and I was getting advice from Tishara's brother, other people. You need to do this, you need to do that, and I'm like, I don't feel like any of that. All that advice y'all are giving me. I just there's nothing that resonates within my spirit that this is what I need to do.
We had people praying when people are still praying for him now. It was just he'll be coming back into the fall. We just know at some point. So,
But that you look back on it and your father was that way, you were that way, and it has negatively affected your son.
Correct.
So we talk about, generational things.
yeah.
And there's things in my own marriage, that Allie and I have had to wrestle with in similar fashion, primarily because she comes from a divorced household. That she one of the reasons that I think she liked me so much is because I reminded her of her dad, and that we're both entrepreneurs, we're both very driven. But that also sort of had a little wedge, in there for their marriage. And Allie would then project those insecurities on me. And so I had to work really, really hard to assure her that she came before my ambitions, because of that wound that she received from observing her parents. And so I feel like in marriage, a lot of times it just comes down to the self-sacrifice and going above and beyond, and looking to the other person's needs above your own.
Yep.
Yes.
And then also, again, just being open about it. Like, did you guys ever talk to each other? Like, hey, do you know that you have anger issues? And were you ever like, hey, this is how it makes me feel whenever you give me the silent treatment?
Yeah.
I think that's something that we grew into.
Yeah.
It was something that we had to grow into.
Yeah.
Just learning how to communicate, instead of coming across as accusatory,
Yeah.
as though, instead of Tishara saying, "I don't know why you don't do this," or "I don't know why you did that," she rewords her question, or she rewords her concern in the sense that says, when this happened, this is how I felt.
Yeah.
And so when she redirects her question on how she feels versus targeting me and telling me that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and so on and so forth, it's a more effective way of communicating that gets the attention of your spouse
Yeah.
versus coming across as pointing the finger. You. If all you're hearing is you, at some point in time you get tired of hearing that. But when you reword it and say I, this is how I felt, or this is how I saw it, so on and so forth, the other person is more receptive to hearing what it is that you have to say.
Yeah.
What's some wisdom you guys would impart to someone who maybe is thinking about getting married? Like Tishara, what would you tell those people? Some marriage advice or pre-marriage advice?
You have to have premarital counseling, but you have to go in it with God. Like, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. You have to have God in your marriage in order for it to work. There's a difference between having a marriage and it's going for years versus having a marriage and having God in the marriage and it's prospering, even though there might be issues. You can have issues within a marriage and it may grow apart and you end up in divorce. But if you have God in that marriage, like he's the defining factor, and you can grow, you can go further, and flexibility and being able to communicate and not being afraid to say what is hurting you. Because I feel like that's what I was always afraid to let him know what I was feeling because of fear. If I said this, what is he going to do? And I've gone through that even early on in marriage. Well, if I say, don't do this, or I don't like it when you do this, or is he going to leave me? Like, those thoughts haunted me for years. And because he loved me so much, he was a blessing, but I kept waiting. It was like, this is just too good to be true. When is he gonna when is something's gonna happen? When is something negative gonna happen that is gonna tear us apart?
Why do you think you struggled with that in particular? Your parents were married, right? They didn't divorce.
They did not, but I think it was just fear. And I think it also went back to the silence that I got from my mother, because just I wanted that attention.
Yeah.
And I felt like, because when I would go back and ask, why aren't you talking to me? Because you would get her talking to my other siblings, a day go by, another day goes by, and then it's like I'm still getting the silent treatment.
Rejection.
So yeah. I battled with that rejection in wanting acceptance and people pleasing for a very, very long time. And it's, to be honest, even right now at this age, 52 years old, that is, the people pleasing is something that God is walking me through now, of just show me how to walk out of it. I'm not out of it all the way, but he's graciously walking alongside of me, and understanding my value. And I remember Sav saying something a while back about Romans, and going to that and how she settled in the book of Romans. And so that's what I started doing as far as identity and understanding who I am, and why do I need approval? Why do I need to understand? And he would tell me for years, Tishara, you're beautiful. You're this. I would not believe it. I would not believe it. It was something mentally that I had taken on that God had to change and take those layers off.
Jimmy, what kind of advice would you give a married couple?
The scripture says that Jesus did not come to serve. He just said that Jesus did not come to be served, but he came to serve. I believe that if you can put yourself or posture yourself in a position to be the best servant that you can be for your spouse, your marriage will thrive. And the serving is not going to be predicated on whether or not that person, your spouse, is serving you, But you're saying, okay, what can I do to be the best servant that I can possibly be for my spouse? And for me, I walk in and I say, okay, dishes need to be washed. Let me get in there and help wash the dishes. Clothes need to be washed. Let me go ahead and pitch in, wash clothes. Bathrooms need to be clean. Now, I may not clean them as good as she does, but I'm going to pitch in and, help clean the bathrooms. And so whatever that looks like for her, and so for each couple, that might be different. You need to understand how you can be the best servant you can possibly be for your spouse.
Yeah, come on. I wanted to sort of transition and Tishara, one of the first times I met you, or I'll put it this way, I saw you. It's kind of interesting. It was many years ago, and City Point was just sort of starting. Joel was there, and I was very interested in healing ministry and deliverance, and I was sort of curious about stuff. And Joel's down front at the altar after service, and there's a woman who just wanted prayer. He starts praying for her, and she falls to the ground and then starts manifesting a demon, and Joel's driving this out. And I went down there all giddy. I'm like, I want to see this. I want to see that. Like, I hadn't really seen a lot of it. And I was like, I want to know what's happening. But you were there. You were looking at this woman, and I looked at your face, and it was like you had straight up seen a ghost. Like, just like sheer fear in your eyes. And so I wanted to know, you talked about all these churches you guys went to growing up. Did you ever see moves of God, miracles, healing, people falling out, deliverance like you do now?
I would say yes. So it was in a sense of, it was more of non-denominational Pentecostal, falling out on the Spirit, just, as far as healings, no.
Okay.
But
the Holy Spirit resting on tongues and all. Pentecostals are really big about tongues.
Tongues, all of that. But the healing perspective on that, no. It was funny that you asked that, because I was just thinking yesterday, I felt like God was doing things with me early on that I didn't even realize this was something to constantly ask for, to pray for, to do. But when I prayed, he would heal my body in various instances. But as far as church-wise, we didn't. I'll say it wasn't until we got to Tennessee, and because this pastor had asked me about being head intercessor, doing anything. Had never done anything but intercession before. Never been over anybody before, and didn't know what I was doing. He had me to be mentored by another intercessor who's very, very well known here in the area here. And so I got up under her for a little bit, and she taught me a lot. And I think that's when I started seeing manifestations of various things, because it was just, I was always in prayer. I was always fasting. I was always sitting with him. And so there may be people that I would just walk up to and just touch, just in conversation, or just giving them a hug. And something is like, I didn't even know what it was, because I would just feel like, oh, wait a minute, something's on me. Like, now I would go to him like something, I feel nasty. Like, I feel icky. I feel nasty. Like something is not right. Or I would be up praying, and he would say, go, talk to this individual. And I would go talk to this individual, and just the interaction with them, I would just feel something. I'm like, and I did.
You're feeling in the spirit. You just didn't really have a word for it.
Yes, I did not. I never had the words for what he was giving me, and I didn't know how to express myself. I just knew I had to get away, and I would go to the back of the church, and I would talk to him. I said, Jimmy, I said, I don't know, something is going on, and I feel like the Lord he's wanting me to do something. I just don't know what, but I know when I touch this individual, that something is going on with them, because they got something is not right. And I just remember sitting at the very back of this church we came to here in Smyrna, and I got up, went to the bathroom, and I just sat there, because they had another minister friend that came out, and they were this girl actually started manifesting with the demon. Okay. And so she's out in the hallway, and I'm there in the bathroom, and they're already, trying to cast this thing out. And I'm sitting in the bathroom. I'm like, Lord, I'm just praying, like, what is going on with me, Lord? Because I touched this lady and like, I know something's going on with her. And I heard him laugh.
God?
I heard the enemy
The
laugh.
enemy? Okay.
And when I heard that, I said, oh, it's on now. And then I just went out there and with the team of people and started. And yeah, so I think it started there. But I think even at your mom and dad's church, like, just to go back to that, I didn't know all of this stuff. Like when we got married, I was having supernatural things happening to me. I just didn't have words. Like I'm laying in the bed and all of a sudden I'm looking up and I see there's bands and they're all different colors and they're coming down and they stop on me. And I'm waking him up. I'm like, Jimmy,
Do you see this?
there's something on me. There's something on me. And he's like, what? And I'm like, we need to pray. Like there's something on me. It's not getting off of me. Like there's bands on me.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know what it was. He said, you need to, because his mother's a prophet. He said, you need to call my mom. She'll know what to do. You need to call my mom. So I called her and she goes, okay, we need to pray. We've got Bible study. The intercessors will be there. We'll have them to pray over you. I just remember getting up that morning, didn't get a lot of sleep, went to work. Thank God I was around other godly ladies in the office because on my lunch break, one of the ladies took me to a deliverance lady.
Yeah. Okay.
On my lunch break. And I was sitting there with her and she was just picking things off me. She was just
So you could see things
she could
in
see
the
so
spirit.
much that was on me. She goes, and by the time I was like, okay, I got to get back. It's my lunchtime. I felt better, but I knew I was 100% free. Yeah. And she told me, I'm letting you know, not everything is not done.
Yeah.
You're not completely free. And I felt that, but I knew I felt better, but I knew I still feel like there was something there. And I just remember, and this even goes back, so we prayed and things got better. But then I also had another experience where promiscuous before we were married and masturbation. And this is just, I'm just being transparent, because I did that a lot. And I remember one time right before we had came back to your place and I heard this voice say, if you do this, you're going to get sick. Because I had never gotten sick before. If you do this, you're going to get sick. I did it.
Did you get sick?
I got sick as a dog.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, from that experience, that let me know that there are spiritual things that are attached to masturbation that is not of God.
Yeah.
Because
basically all sexual sin, right?
Yeah,
Anything.
it was a sexual sin.
Yeah.
It did not, the prayers that I was praying did not help. Intercessors that I went to that night, strong intercessors, they were praying, and the only thing that they said that they saw was this big black imp. He was short, and he had such a grip and a hold on me that he was not willing to let me go, but they prayed and prayed and prayed. I was still not free, but I remember coming home that evening or that night, and I asked him, I said, Jimmy, will you fast with me? And I remember getting on my knees, and I repented and asked God to forgive me. And at that very moment, when I asked him to forgive me, it left just like that.
The sickness?
The sickness left. I was sick as a dog.
Yeah.
I could not, like no manner of prayer was taking it away.
Yeah. Wow.
And that just, it taught me, I'm like, okay, this is something that I'm almost certain that because men are associated with masturbation, but I can tell you there's probably women that are doing the exact same thing. And it is a sexual sin. Yeah. And there are sexual demons attached to that. There are sicknesses attached to that. It just is until God reveals that thing to you. I'm just going to say, if you are doing it, please come out of it because it is biblically, it's wrong and it's not right.
Yeah. What about you, Jimmy? The miraculous.
You know, I tell Tishara that I think her and Savannah are twins
Yeah.
because she has Tishara.
So many encounters and stuff.
Yeah, every time Tishara, she'll wake me up or she'll tell me something, and I'm like, golly, you and Savannah, y'all sound like twins. You know, I can remember when we first got married, just talking to God. When I was working for the post office, I would just talk to God. I can remember one specific instance where it was so hot. It was a hot day, and I forgot my water bottle, and it was cloudy, but the clouds were not covering the sun, and my shirt was soaked, my pants were soaked, and I just remember saying, God, it's cloudy out here, but the clouds aren't moving. It sure would be nice if the clouds could start moving and cover the sun. And I want to say 15, 20 minutes later, the clouds started moving. And for the rest of the route,
You were in shade?
I was in shade. And so I was getting towards the end of my route on Chickapin Street. And I said, Lord, I said, it's amazing that I'm hand delivering these the mail to mailboxes, and I'm seeing people, and they see the condition that I'm in, and no one has asked me if I want some water. And the Lord says, before your route ends, someone's gonna ask you if you want a glass of water. And he says, and whoever that person is, I'm going to bless them. I get to the end of my route on Chinkapin, and the last thing that I have to do is go to the blue box. You know, the blue box where people dump their mail.
Mm-hmm.
I have to pick that collection box up. And there's this guy that's standing out there. He's like, it sure is hot out here today. I say, yes, sir, it is. He says, would you like to have a glass of water? And I'm like, oh my God, this is real.
Yeah.
This is so real. And the guy let me in his house and fixed me some water. And I would have conversations, and I would see things like that happen in my life. I tell people all the time that I probably shouldn't be here today just because of the accidents that I've been involved in, situational things that I've been involved in, whereas I'm wanting to react and respond in one way, and God is telling me, the spirit on the inside is quickening within me to say, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And I don't do it.
Yes.
And then I find out later on in time that if I had done this, that I would have, that if I had done what I wanted to do,
Your gangster days.
yeah, I would have gotten shot.
Yeah.
And so I have those kind of experiences where,
You hear in the spirit a lot is what it sounds like.
yes, I just have those kind of experiences. I feel like God's blessed me with a strong spirit of discernment.
Come on.
And so,
Yes.
I'm able to discern, situationally, I can discern certain things, as it relates to people. God gives me a spirit of discernment. I believe God has put me on this earth, whereas Tishara, I pray, but she prays, I pray, but she prays.
She travails.
She travails. She's going to be up 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and the girls are going to come downstairs and going to be like, "Mom, are you okay?" Because she is praying for something going on. She's praying. I feel like God has blessed me with the gift of encouragement, that He put me on this earth to encourage people.
Yeah.
And it could be because of the things that I've gone through in life. And so, together, we complement each other really well.
Make a good team.
Yeah. So,
Come on. I had one more thing I wanted to pry out of you if you're willing to share it, Jimmy.
yeah.
there was a time in prayer that came and you were just crying. You're sitting and just crying. And I was just talking to you and you said, and you're basically saying that this fog just shows up in your house. Can you tell me about that?
Gosh, James, I don't know. For the longest time,
And somebody just asked us about that
we
recently.
had a fog in our home, and we thought it was the humidifier. The humidifier, we thought it was a humidifier that was
Yeah.
creating a fog, and we shut the humidifier off, and that fog just didn't go away, and it would just seem, for the longest time, it just seemed cloudy in our house. And yourself and Ethan and
I was
everybody
still
was
thinking
like,
it's the humidifier.
just like, y'all got the presence of God in your house. And I'm like,
Glory cloud.
the glory cloud. That's like, so yeah. And then every once in a while, there's this one room,
It's still like that
and
today.
I'm like, okay, because this one room is probably the messiest room in our house.
Yes.
It's
And I'm
hard.
like, we're looking. I'm like, there's nothing in this room. Like, why is this room like? Why is it like this room is cloudy? And we don't know.
It's still cloudy?
Oh yeah, it's like that all the time.
I want to come over. I want to go to this room.
Yeah,
That's what Ethan said. That's what Ethan has said.
yeah. It's just, I don't know. I think it's just I think maybe it's a reminder that God is letting us know that He's still with us.
Yeah.
You know, He said He'd never leave us nor forsake us, and so, you know, we get to experience things that might seem odd and weird to some
Yeah.
people. For us, we know what that is, and so we're happy, we're blessed. That God just continues to show up, you know, in us and through us, in whatever manner He chooses to do that.
Come on. Well, guys, is there anything else you want to say about anything we talked about today that we missed?
No, I mean, James, we could probably talk all
I'm
day
sure you guys got great stories.
long. I mean, you know,
And I would listen to them too if I wasn't so hungry.
yeah. So yeah, this has been really great. It's been an honor for Tishara and I to be able to do this with you. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I told Tishara we gotta get our marriage ministry off the ground.
Oh, come on.
So yeah, we've
This is a
done.
good start.
This is this is a good start, and
I think we've tried several times.
we have tried several times, and we've done some things in the past, and you know, Tishara's getting ready to finish up with school, but we even talked a couple of weeks ago that, you know, her finishing up with school shouldn't stop us from getting this marriage ministry off the ground. So, you know, the one thing that frustrates me, James, is that I see people who've been married for 20, 25 years and they just decide to give it up. They decide to quit. And it makes no sense. To me, it makes no sense, but I feel like, you know, there were plenty of times and opportunities for us to quit and for us to give up and walk away. But we chose. I think marriage is a choice.
Yeah.
You know, we have to choose
Every day.
every
Yes.
day to live this life, to be kind to one another, even though sometimes we don't want to be kind to one another. But, you know, Tishara and I want to just, you know, spit out a positive energy and pray for marriages and see if we can help diminish the divorce rate.
Yeah, come on.
So
So Allie, you guys said you got married at 21, and you're like, that's young. Allie got married at 20. So I was 26. And within our first year of marriage, we had been to a lot of other weddings. Even before we got married, we'd been to other weddings. But within about a year or two of our marriage, I think we saw maybe 3 couples get divorced who were married as long as us, or maybe slightly longer or slightly shorter. And I just remember in my townhome talking to Allie about that. Something in me was just so angry about that. I'm like, why would you do that?
yeah,
And I decided to myself, like, I was going to say something. Like, I wasn't going to just sit idly by while people were getting divorced and not interject, even if it meant that I would maybe look really bad. And so the next couple that came along that we saw were separating. They're sleeping in different rooms, and they've been married about the same amount of time as Allie and I. I started to disciple the guy and heard, all the issues. And I literally went to the pastoralship of our church, and I was like, if you don't intervene in this issue, I will. I was like, I will go and I will talk to this woman who is not acting correctly in her marriage. And fortunately, the church actually did step up, and two pastors, like I would call them more lay leaders, but they were ordained. They're more like you guys. They literally sat down with this couple, and that marriage was saved because of this intervention that happened.
Yeah.
And so Allie and I started to do more and more of that. We would see this marriage on the brink of divorce, and we would insert ourselves, even though politeness would say, don't do such a thing. How dare you? And that's why I told you earlier, we've seen so many marriages saved, is because we'll try to rescue them.
Yeah.
And so I highly encourage you to do that, because this world needs people who will step in, stand in the gap, and fight for something beautiful like a depiction of Christ and his bride.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, do one of you guys want to pray for people listening, and maybe pray for their marriages, or hopefully eventual marriages? Whatever God puts on your heart. I just like to end these with praying for people listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Father God, we just thank you for who you are. You are amazing. You're the author and you're the finisher of our lives. And it is you who have created us, and not we ourselves. And when you created us, Lord God, you created us in your image. And we just thank you, Lord God, that for your mercy. We thank you for your grace that is upon us in every way. And we thank you, Lord, for the aspect of marriage that you created between a man and a woman. And we know that, Lord, that the enemy's job is to steal, kill, and destroy. But Lord, we thank you that Jesus Christ, the one who knew no sin but became sin for us, that we might be made the righteousness of God. He came that we might have life and have it more abundantly. And so we just lift up every marriage that may be listening to this podcast. And we just ask, Lord God, that your spirit will minister to the husband, will minister to the wife. And we pray, Lord God, that your spirit will encourage them, Lord God. And we just pray for your continued protection over the sanctity of marriage. In your precious son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.